The House of Commons has implemented a controversial rule change. It has removed the individual names of roughly 2,000 parliamentary staff from the public register of interests of members' staff. It's replaced them with generic job titles, and they've done this to protect staff security. But there is, of course, a hitch. Critics warn that it'll make it harder to expose conflicts of interest, lobbying and foreign influence in Westminster. Indeed, Alberto Costa, the chairman of the Commons Standards Committee, who oversaw the move, was forced to apologise himself for failing to declare that he was employing his wife. And this while he was debating the new rules in the chamber. Karl Turner, who currently sits as an independent MP after he was suspended from the Labour Party this year, says any attempt to anonymise erodes democracy, and he is here to discuss that with me now. So what about the argument, Karl Turner, that this is just very important for people's security? We know that, you know, with the recent events with Anne Widdecombe, with things that happened to Keir Starmer, with things that have happened to Nigel Farage, it's quite dangerous.
Well, good afternoon, Danny. I think you make a point, and I'm sure that the trade unions have made similar points. It's important, of course, that members of Parliament and indeed their staff have protections from attempts at the MP. That's who people are trying to get at, of course. It's not the staff member themselves. But I do worry about this. And to be honest with you, I think this has existed for about a decade, this policy where members of Parliament have got to declare who their members of staff are by name. Not their addresses, of course, just the names. Now, I think if we've arrived at a position where members of Parliament can be trusted to police themselves, fine. But I'm afraid to tell you, I don't think we have. I think it's potentially subject to abuse, and I think the position is, for me, democracy is affected badly by the prospect of anonymising members of staff. I don't say give addresses, but I think it is a worry. Why should I be entitled to employ people or indeed dish out parliamentary passes to people without having to justify the reason? It's happened to me. I've had press inquiries in the past. For about 6 months, I gave a trade union official who I was working with on the P&O Ferries campaign a parliamentary pass. The media came to me, why are you giving a pass to a trade unionist? I said, because I'm working regularly with the RMT union, and for that reason it's helpful to me to do my job to allow this man to have a pass into the parliamentary estate. There was another example recently. I've not had a press inquiry about this, but Professor John Cooper, King's Counsel, worked with me in the last few months on a justice commission to come up with policy for the criminal justice system. I gave him a pass. I think it's about to expire. But if a member of the press contacts me and says, why on earth is Professor John Cooper, King's Counsel, having one of your passes, I'm very happy to disclose the reasons why. It's about democracy for me. And let's just not, let's be very careful about how we behave in terms of being secretive about who has passes to Parliament.
I mean, it seems to me that's a compelling answer, but it's also a compelling question. So you end up with really a trade-off. It's between the security and safety of the members of staff, and some of those people are just caseworkers or somebody's personal assistant. They're not people with a political background at all who are working for a parliamentarian, and those people's names are in the public domain in circumstances which could legitimately, and I think plausibly also, be a security problem for them. So are you saying, well, yes, that's a bit of a problem, but it's minor by comparison with the anonymous issue? Because this is a trade-off, isn't it?
Well, I think democracy is incredibly important, and I think that journalists are part of our democratic system. If a journalist wants to make an inquiry of a member of Parliament who's duly elected to represent the constituents in Parliament, or indeed a member of the House of Lords who is effectively a member of Parliament, they ought to be able to ask those questions. Now, look, I tell you this, I have, and I'm not just saying it, the very greatest respect for Alberto Costa. I think he's a very good parliamentarian. I think he's an incredibly impressive chair of the committee. We saw that with the Boris Johnson and Partygate. He was a Tory MP, but he didn't flinch when it came to saying the things that he needed to say about the shenanigans that were happening in Downing Street. So I respect him greatly. A very good friend of mine, Paula Barker, Parker, Labour MP, sits on the same committee. The greatest respect for her, but I just disagree with this decision.
Why do you think they've
I think
done
democracy. I think they've been lobbied very hard by trade unions, and I'm a trade unionist, by the way, a staunch trade unionist, but I think that's probably part of it. I think that it also allows the ability for members of Parliament. I mean, that's the suspicion for me, isn't it? Why would MPs not want to name staff or pass holders? Well, you can easily jump to the conclusion that's because they don't want you to know they're employing the missus, or the husband, or the nephew, or the great aunt. That's also a problem. I think constituents and the media are entitled to say to me, if I am employing my missus, I'm not, by the way, why do you employ your missus and can't somebody else do that job?
Could you, for example, make it essential that if you are employing your spouse, you would have to say that?
Well, I think that could be an answer to this, but I mean, it's not just the spouse thing for me. I think it's important for democracy. Look, we have political opponents in this game by virtue of the job we do. So is it all right for a member of Parliament who's in an opposing party to employ what I might consider as an unsavoury character without challenge from me? I don't think it is. I'm not going to mention names, but I've got names in my head. They want to be employing crypto billionaires and all the rest of the stuff in their office with a security pass, a pass to Parliament, so they can waltz in, come and go as they please, anytime they feel like it, and use the facilities in Parliament for as long as they so desire. I think that's a problem, because it causes, in my view, an opportunity. Not guaranteed, but an opportunity to take advantage of the system and effectively become a lobbyist. Now, is there an individual issue about a security thing? Well, if there is, fine, I get it. But then the police and the security services will contact that individual and their MP to say there's an issue. They're very good at it, the police. Right. The security services are very impressive, Danny. I don't think we need to anonymise. We don't need to keep it secretive. Okay. Let's be transparent. Democracy is important.
So there's no anonymising Karl Turner. That's certainly true. And you've been quite a big, prominent figure, and therefore it would be remiss of me not to ask you about the Labour whip, just while I've got you so kindly coming in. Andy Burnham said he's going to change the way that the parliamentary party is whipped. He put that in his book, so he's clearly very committed to this idea. How will it affect you, Diane Abbott? Has the whip back? You have not. Are you expecting to get it back soon? Do you want it back?
Well, I'd be terribly disappointed if I didn't get the whip back, Danny. Andy Burnham and I go back a long time. I nominated him in 2010 as the leader candidate of the Labour Party. I was on his campaign team in 2015. We've remained good pals. I think he refers to me in his book as my very good friend Karl Turner when he's describing an exchange between me and him where I was rather frosty about a certain situation that was unfolding at the time. I'll tell you what it is, because listeners will be interested. I was expecting Andy Burnham to resign in absolute disgust from Jeremy Corbyn's shadow cabinet, as I had done, and when he didn't, I was rather cheesed off about the fact. So I rang him and had an exchange of words with Andy. We didn't fall out, but it was very typical of the way I deal with things, and I was fairly robust. So look, we've been pals a long time, but Andy Burnham's not going to start interfering with whips.
Have you had a hint that you might get it back?
Well, I've not had an hint, but I mean, Andy said to me I would have the whip back in a heartbeat if he became leader of the party and Prime Minister. But look, there is a procedure and a process to go through. I don't expect Andy Burnham, when he's in Kyiv today, I think, dealing with international issues, is the Prime Minister, for crying out loud. I don't expect him to be interfering with is the whip back to this person or that person. I expect the party will do what the party needs to do. I've said what I've got to say on the issue. I happen to think I was discriminated against, Danny. It was fairly bad, and the reality is, to be honest with you, I think the best thing the party could do is reinstate the whip. We all move on. We're all Team Labour and Team Burnham, and we get to the next general election and win it.
Well, that was Karl Turner, and I may be the last person to call him independent MP. But very nice of you to come in. Thank you very much indeed.